Chapter 1 spends a great deal of time focusing on some of the various ways that artists are important to us as a society. And today I'd like to talk about one of those roles that the artist has in society, and that is to give tangible form to feelings and ideas. That think of it this way: that art actually visually presents ways that you can relate to the feelings of the artist or what the artist is trying to say. And it bypasses words. You don't even have to have words to describe it. You just look at something and you get a vibe from it, you get a feeling from it. And let me give you an example of this. This is a painting called Groundhog Day by Andrew Wyeth. And Andrew Wyeth was a painter. You can see this was done in 1959. And so he, painted kind of from the 1930s all the way up to the around 1990. He's been dead for, a few years now, but that kind of gives you the time frame of what I'm talking about. And one time I was in Kansas City at the art museum. I was actually in graduate school at the time, and I had gone there for a conference, and went to the art museum, and I was walking around, and I got to the American collection, which is where this is located. And I was standing in front of it, and the first thing is, I'm just looking at what's in the painting and just kind of what's there and the style it's painted in, and it's a realistic style. There's nothing abstract about this, and as I'm standing in front of it, I'm getting a very lonely, kind of sad feeling. And, I'm looking all over the painting and I thought, this is really interesting. Like, why would a painting just of a plate on a table, and a knife and whatever, make me feel so sad? Like, what is it about this painting? And I'm thinking this or that. And this is a fairly good size painting too, by the way. I mean, it's probably life size to give you a sense of scale. And, I just kind of went, I don't know, and walked off. Now I went back to college and I'm doing some work, couple, 3 weeks later or something, and I'm in the library doing some research, and I walked past, and sometimes the libraries have books that are just laid out for you to see or whatever, and there was a book about Andrew Wyeth that was just laying there, and I looked over at it and I just opened up the book, and just here was this picture, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's that picture that I was looking at when I was in Kansas City. And I stopped and I read about this painting. And Andrew Wyeth was born into a family where his father was an illustrator and a very good artist. They lived in rural Pennsylvania. His dad did a lot of illustrations for books at the time and magazines. He was really famous. And so he lived in a house where art was around him all the time. And so he grew up with that. But when he was uh, young, and I'm not exactly sure. This is weird. I don't even know exactly how this started, but he started going to the neighbor's farm. The nearest neighbors was this old German couple that lived about I don't know, half a mile up the road or something. And he started going to their house and painting, or not painting, but drawing, sketching them. And he sketched and sketched. Like, he would go up, and the weirdest thing was he did not speak German, they did not speak English. I don't even know how it all started, but he would just go there and sit with them while they were doing their chores and whatever, and draw them. And they seemed completely fine with that. And he had hundreds and hundreds of sketches. But what this allowed him to do was get really good at drawing because of practice, practice, practice. I'm sure his dad had something to do with all that. So, at any rate, he gets really good. His senior year in high school, he gets a great scholarship to go to the Philadelphia Academy of Art, which is, by the way, still there, still a great art school. And during his uh, first semester there, the old man died from that farm. And, his family let him know. And he, I'm sure was sad and sure felt bad about it. But, stayed on there at school and whatever. And it finished out and came home for Christmas. So they have Christmas and whatever at the house. And then he just kind of as a regular activity, he says, I'm going to go up to the Kerners, that was their name, and uh, draw for a while. So he gets his stuff together, goes up there, and he said later that he opened the door and he stepped in, and Mrs. Kerner was getting ready for lunch, and she sat down, one plate and one knife and one cup and saucer, and she was setting the table for one person. And he said, and that's when it just hit me that it was true, that it hadn't become true until I saw her doing, now living her life as one person instead of two. And what's funny is I felt that day when I looked at this painting. I stood in front of it and I felt a loneliness and isolation. I felt a sadness. I kind of, mocked myself a little bit standing there thinking, boy, you're being stupid. It's just a plate. But I felt it. And I think art does that to us, that if we take a minute and we just contemplate something, try to empty your mind out a little bit and just think, what is it telling me? Right? What feelings is this artist saying here? I want to share this with you. This happened to me. This is how I felt. And you could tell somebody that story, but I think the real feelings come from the painting. The real feeling I got was when I did this. After, taking a few minutes and studying the painting, I understood why I felt that way. But it gave me the feelings regardless of knowing the story. Artists in the Impressionist era, which would be like, 1870 to around 1900, 1910, there was a group of French painters who decided that they were tired of all this, super representational art that glorified, important events like, the death of Socrates or something like that. And they said, we just think that nature and just simple activities that people do are very important. And so we just want to capture that feeling and get it down and put it down and look at the way that the light plays on objects and things like that. And by the time Claude Monet started painting water lilies, it had almost even gone past that to where the painting became more of a feeling of what it feels like to stand and look at the water. It just feels tranquil and beautiful, and it just surpasses words. You don't even need them. It's the feeling you get when you look at it that makes Water Lilies by Claude Monet very important. The Museum of Modern Art in New York, they have a series of these water lilies. There's 3 extremely large canvases that form a triptych in the room. So you're kind of surrounded by these water lilies. And I'm not kidding, people just sit there and they don't even just stand in front of them and gaze. They just sit on the floor. I've walked into that room before and people are just laying all over the place, just staring at them because it just kind of immerses you in this beautiful, tranquil feeling. Now, I would like for you to do an exercise for me. And I'm gonna do it for you, and then I'll have you guys do it. But there's a couple important terms that you need to know when we're talking about looking and responding at art, and responding to, I mean. And one would be observation. The first thing that happens to you when you look at a work of art is you observe. You say, these are the things I see. And you may not even say it. It probably just goes so fast. You just do this automatically. But I want you to stop and do it a little bit more thoughtfully right now. So, like, I'm going to do this little exercise on this painting. And the first thing I do is I walk up to it and I look and what do I see? right? No judgments. Don't tell me what you think is happening in this, right? Just tell me what you see. So I'm gonna tell myself, all right, so what do I see here? Well, I see tabletops. I see white tabletops, kind of gray tabletops. There's, I don't know, this one right in the front corner down here. I see something sitting on top of it. As I move up, there's like a gray platter with a glass carafe on it. There's two people sitting here. There's a man that's wearing a dark suit. There's a woman in who's lighter. Her dress is lighter. They cast two big shadows on the back wall. She has a glass full of some sort of oddly greenish liquid in it. He's got a darker glass over there sitting in front of him. It's a little bit hard to see. Um, there doesn't appear to be any sort of legs on the table. That's odd. Um, she has fancy shoes with bows on them. Okay, those are all observations. Now I could talk about colors. I could talk about the style. I could say it's fairly representational, but it's done in a fast way that the brushstrokes seem very, very loose and quick. You know, things like that. That would all be observations. What do I see? There's a big yellow line on the back wall. There seems to be some kind of diamond lines quickly gestured in the back. They seem to be sitting on a brown bench, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So the next step is perception. So those are observations. Boom, that's what I'm looking at. No judgment, it's just what I see. Now it's like, okay, what do you think is happening? Now is when you can make the judgments. Now you can tell me, as I look at her, she looks very despondent, um, depressed, maybe. She looks sad. Um, Maybe she's really so drunk, right? Now I'm thinking, I think they're in a bar. That's another. Now I can say, this is where I think this is happening. I think they're in a bar. I think they've been drinking a while. I think he is not interested in what she's doing. She's not interested in what he's doing. He's looking the other way. I don't understand why Degas didn't put those legs on the table. It seems weird. But maybe he thought they would get in the way of me seeing their legs, and, dress. And, she's wearing this really long dress. And that all the way they're dressed makes me think, I don't know, maybe 100 years ago, maybe 150 years ago that this was painted. Um, so I'm thinking I'm thinking this painting overall makes me feel kind of sad, right? It feels um, kind of sad. Well, that's perception. Okay, I put together now that the time period I think it's happening in. That's what I think, right? I'm thinking it's happening in a bar. I'm thinking they both maybe appear to be unhappy people. I'm thinking it might be they drink a lot, right? Now I'm drawing conclusions. I'm thinking, all right. Okay, the third thing then is to study. Study can come from a lot of different ways. You don't have to just take a class to study, right? Though often that will really help you. I highly recommend that. But sometimes study comes from the fact that maybe you've gone to church, maybe you're religious, and so when you look at a religious work of art, you know what's happening. You look at a work and you go, "Oh, I know that story from the Bible. That's David and Goliath." Blah blah blah. Right? Okay. A lot of information we gather just comes from living. Being receptive to information and new things and looking around. But I do recommend taking classes because they are really great. Or read up on it. You can do that. You can Google things. You can find out more information. And so this painting is actually called The Absinthe, L'Absinthe by Edgar Degas. It was painted in 1875-76. And absinthe is the name of a very of an alcoholic drink with a high alcohol content, very, very high. and it was kind of this light greenish color. So we look at her drink and we know she's drinking absinthe, right? At the time, absinthe was uh, it was highly addictive as a drink, and I'm not so sure it was more addictive than high alcohol content drinks we have right now. I'm just thinking it was the drink of choice for people that had alcoholism and alcohol troubles. You could, get drunk faster. So with that said, it kind of had a very, very bad reputation as sort of the crack cocaine of the day, right? Or the heroin of the day. That people became addicted, they lost everything, their lives went down. Personally, I think it was just alcoholism, but regardless. Um, so Degas is really making a social statement on absinthe drinking and what it looks like. And I'm not, well, I don't know if I even want to say he's making a statement. I think he just observed this and put it down. And then when this particular painting was exhibited, oh my gosh, you guys, it was just wildly panned. And the critics called it ugly and disgusting. And literally it was written, in the paper, she's such a whore, and things like that. And it just lambasted this painting, and it was actually put away for a few years and just into the cupboard because it was so horribly, you know, uh, reviewed, and so it came back out. It got the same thing happening again. Eventually, though, it was taken, and people said, it really does more than just show kind of a sad part of society. What it really shows is the feeling and maybe desperation of someone who finds themselves in this place. And we have a tendency to quick judge everybody else for what they do. But today this is in the museum in Paris, and it's an incredibly beautiful painting. But I think, interestingly enough, our perceptions when I first looked at this were spot on. Yeah, the, alcoholism or drug addiction is a very incredibly lonely place to be. And uh, I think this painting shows that. Now, as we look back on this, and some of you guys have maybe loved ones that that have been dealing with addiction problems, and there is a despondency and obviously a pulling away and isolation and separation that happens with people with addiction. And I think anybody can look at this now and see this quite plainly. At the time, they just thought it was loose morals and how dare you show this to good society. But I think we can see that now. So that is the exercise I would like you to do. And I would like you to do this with Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh. I want you to write down 3 observations. Now remember, these are things you just see, right? It could be colors, it could be lines, it could be what you see in the painting, but not what you think, well, I think that's what this is, right? No, 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 you can't do that. That's a perception. So 3 observations of what you actually see. And if you don't know what the shape in the front is, say there's a large brown shape in the front, right? I mean, I don't know. So you write down 3 of those, and then I want you to write down 3 perceptions. How do you feel? How do you feel about it? Right? I would like to know that as one of them. How do you feel about this painting? How does this painting make you feel? Do you get feelings from this painting? And, now you can make judgments. I think this is what is happening in this painting. I think it's happening here, so forth. Then I want you to take a couple minutes and go to page, I believe it's page 9 in the book. Yes, it is. Or 10, excuse me. Page 10 in the book. And I want you to read about Starry Night just a little bit. And if you'd like, you could also Google Vincent van Gogh, right? And get a wee bit more information about this painting and him, and jot down 3 facts that you found out about this painting that you did not know before. Okay. Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh, painted in 1889, is actually facts about this painting, right? You can't use those as 3 of your facts, but I want you to write down 3 facts. Then I want you to see how did the information you gleaned from the work line up with your perceptions and your feelings about the work. Okay, so let's talk. So this is a little exercise on looking and responding to art. Okay, and I just jot this down on a piece of paper. I want you to take a picture of your piece of paper so I can read it. I need to be able to read it. Put your name on it, and then I want you to upload it to the assignment. All right. Okay. So complete this, get it uploaded, and I will be talking to you soon.